Sorry. Sorry about that. Reviewing pictures. Yeah, I meant to do that for Suzanne and Charmin. And then another way to show dimension here is this rail that's going up into the up the stairs and the side of the flower boxes. So if you have to face on a building, look for ways that you can show shadows or some depth so it doesn't read flat. Again, blocks are a great way to practice that. When I painted this, I painted these two sides with this lightest blue here first, and then I came back and put another coat of that same blue on the darker side. So if you have two sides that are very similar, paint both of them the same color, let it dry, come back and use that same color on the darker one. So and then here is what I was talking about, the shadows are different colors. Where here is this side, it's on a pink tablecloth. Over here it's kind of an aqua tablecloth. So the darker shadow here is going to be in pink tones or similar, where here it's aqua. That make sense?
Not to me. No. They're sitting on two different tablecloths?
Yeah, see there's a line right here that divides it.
Oh, now I get it.
This side has a pink cloth, this side has an aqua cloth.
Gotcha.
But I want you to see that the shadows are different because the surface of which the shadow is on is different. And that's one thing in water and oil painting, sometimes we mix a shadow color and we just use that same shadow color for everything. And if you let it show through the transparent part, sometimes that works, but it depends on really what the surface is on. So that was from my Arizona color theory kick-butt class that put me in the hospital. This is just a fun place that we found, Tomato Place. It was on the side of a highway. And this one was not, this was done from a photo because it was so busy to sit and do it. And sometimes if the scene overwhelms you, take a picture of it to help you simplify it. Some plein air painters do that too. They'll take a picture, photograph to simplify it, but please don't just use the photograph if you're plein air painting. Look back at the nature to see what the true colors are. Because even though the photo will help you identify what part you're painting, you don't want to be limited to that. Here is again where I came back. I probably did a couple of layers to get it really dark up under here. I left some area in between where the posts were, but if I didn't leave enough, what do you use to show the posts? That gel pen. Just make sure your paint's dry. And the trees, just drops of color really. I didn't even finish the sky. You see how loose the sky is? I just put a little blue in and just kind of let it go. So, these are to where hopefully you can try them. The ones that are in, that was a dry brush. You see how you can see the paper through it?
Are you talking about the barn?
The barn. The barn was done with dry brush. I had very little water in the brush. And so when I drag that brush across the paper, it allows some of the ridges of the paper to show through. And then when I want to show the angle of the roof, then you lay in the angle. When you lay in your color, you put it with the angle of which the shape is. And that's just part of drawing.
So you used your pen though too, right?
Yes, I also used my pen.
Okay.
And if you look back here, I didn't even really try to identify what tree was what. If you ignore the pen mark, I want to show the distant mountain way back here with that paler blue. I wanted to show another indication of foliage further back so it's more green but still muted. I wanted it warmer up close, so that's when I bring in the yellows and the brighter colors. But then there's some darker colors too along where the shadows would be. And that pushes the barn forward. let it dry, add a little pen. Okay? What I love about this is one side of, well, I thought I got the whole painting, somewhere the whole thing is. I didn't put any pen there. I just wanted to indicate that, that there were houses there. So I just put the roof color, I left some of it white, I put shadows where there were shadows, but it reads right. So you have to really try to let yourself, don't overanalyze every detail. And then the boat was done with the pen. So the mast of the boat. This was that same barn at a slightly different angle, and you see the path going up to it, and you see more of the mountain. Just a different use of pen with the loose watercolor in the back. Here's another example of when you're dealing with buildings, sometimes you'll see people. We'll touch on people a little bit next week because that'll be our last day. But here's an example of vanishing point. You see how the bottom of the fence goes off, the top of the fence goes off, quit that. And so back here would be the vanishing point for these lines. That indicates depth. So if you want to show depth in a work, use these linear perspective lines that angle off. And then, put a person in it. I thought it was pretty cool. He was, it's not bad to do someone from the back. So that's right. Now here's another simplification. This was a huge paper mill factory. And so when I zoom in, you see so much of it is just pen and shadows. I look at what shape the building was initially. If there was a shadow along the side, I just followed the shadow. This was all in shadow.
You did that live? Did you draw that first?
I hope you're holding your nose if you did that live.
No, it actually this one didn't smell like
the
some.
wind was blowing the other
Yeah,
way.
it was going the other direction. Yeah.
Is that down near the coast?
This is near West Point, Virginia. This is in West Point, Virginia. This whole little town of West Point, and there's might just be less than 20,000, maybe less than 5,000. It's really small. But so much of it is employed here.
But
What's the 1914?
What's 1914? It's probably when it's West Point Mill was formerly Chesapeake Pulp and Paper Company in 1914.
So you weren't alive and painting.
No, this was from a photo. This was actually probably from what I call in my drive-by shootings. It's sounds bad, but I have a camera it's my teeny little camera, and when somebody else is driving, because it has a quick shutter, I can just aim, point, and shoot. So that's how I get a lot of the barn pictures. That's how I got this. If it's just take a picture, and because you're taking a picture of something far away, it's clear. If you took a picture up close, it'd be a blur. But I've gotten some wonderful reference pictures that way. But here again is what I'm trying to show you is here's a tower right here, kind of like a silo like Jan had.
So simple.
Very simple. Shadow more on one side. Just be consistent with your shadows, and then you can throw in some pen to indicate stairways, railings, planks, landings. I mean, it was just...
That's the coolest little painting, and who would think a paper mill would be something you'd want to paint?
But,
So you painted your color first, and then you went over it with the pen.
right,
Okay.
right. Okay?
Some of my problem is trying to find something and I keep thinking, oh, it's not pretty enough, or it's not interesting enough.
It could be anything.
But that's so cool.
I'm learning
Yeah.
in Strata, people will paint a piece of rope or
Yeah.
alkyd boxes.
Yeah. It doesn't... here's this scene all together.
Yeah.
All right, now, remember this side was not finished, detailed. This side, this side, I used the white pen to outline these buildings
And the bones.
and the boats.
Cool.
And still, the painting part of this was almost a solid block of that orangey tone. And then the side that was darker, maybe another layer. You see how this side over here is lighter?
And did you say which white pen you liked?
Well, the gel pen was what I used on this.
I mean, was there a certain one?
What is that one?
Jelly
What-
roll.
Jelly Roll. That's just a generic, cheap, inexpensive gel pen. Now, there is one that's more opaque that I just came across that I found, but I didn't have that at the
Yeah,
time.
that one's awesome. You should have that one.
And anyway, here's just another example that y'all have in your messages. This was plein air. Do you see how light it is?
But I don't think it said.
I didn't have time to come back and add layers. I was on a lunch break on a 13-mile hike,
Ugh.
and so I didn't want to spend much time.
Yeah, see, mine is just.
And this tree, I put in the foliage, then I put in the trunk and branches. Did y'all hear that? I put in the foliage first, then the trunk and branches. Because if you put in all the trunks and branches first and then try to put foliage on, you're going to see the trunk and branches through your foliage.
So the leaves are wet and to wet, the trunk and branches are dry?
Yes. Yes.
The
So,
leaves are beautiful.
okay, and then here was the
So is there negative painting for the white?
the white. I left the white.
Yeah.
And this is where you just leave where the snow is and you paint the shadows. And the trees that are in the distance, I just had very pale shadows.
I love that.
This is LeConte Lodge. Another hike. Okay, some of you saw this, I think, during the drawing class. I did this. Here's another example of the vanishing point. You see how all these lines in this building line up toward one point? And when you realize that and can say, okay, if you can hold your pencil up and you go, okay, that top of the building's that angle. All right, I want it to be that angle. The bottom of the building is this way. But it helps you get depth. If you were looking at that building straight on, it wouldn't have been as interesting.
Right.
So, and then we have Sharmilla's lovely.
That's beautiful.
Had that in there. I don't know.
I don't know.
Anyway, good choice to keep it in there. All right, so we need to paint, but I wanted you to see why I sent you some of those, and then there's others in another. There was others in another feed. We won't go through those right now because you can do those on your own.
Where's that Ferris wheel?
Okay,
In Las Vegas.
Oh, I like that.
Now.
That makes it cool.
Whoop.
I think that's cool.
Y'all have any questions at this point?
So what are we painting?
Well, we'll get to
Oh,
that in a
you're gonna
minute.
get photos.
Yeah, I'm gonna get some photos out. And I'm gonna let you probably say, here's a mission.
Wow.
That was one of the missions in San Antonio. And this is where you might go,
Yeah.
what would you start with?
The cupola and the arched windows.
The one thing
To the
on
right.
the left, yeah.
You could. Because see, this is an example. If I knew I was gonna sit there for a long time, I might start with what's in the center and work out. Or I might start here and just work this way and just see how far I got.
Wow.
But
That's beautiful.
I want us to do one where we're staring at the same one and let it fill the page. I thought I had some others here. Hold on. I forgot to pull them out. That's another, it's a cool house.
Mm-hmm. I love the clothes on.
Isn't that funny? That's why I took the picture. Oh, here you go. How about
Oh,
that?
we're not ready for
And
prime
that.
time. Oh, is that Notre Dame? It's
And-
Do it, I saw your drawing.
That,
No, no, no. Oh,
And-
Lord.
that. Here we go.
I just found us a little shack,
Yeah.
a little barn
I
somewhere.
love that mission church.
That is possible.
What is that, the Supreme Court? Oh, there you go.
We could do that.
Well, I want, Oh, I want to do a variety of things.
Huh.
You know, buildings tell a lot of stories.
Hmm.
And, you know where everybody should know that. That's Second Street, or Third Street
That's a neat
in
photo.
Macon. Here's on this, like, okay, say if you were doing, this is in New Orleans, on Jackson Square, where you're walking around Jackson Square and there's artists all around. That's a LeConte Lodge. Window, this is looking out from the cupola of the Hay House. They let some artists go up there.
Is that not the Massey? That apartment complex?
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, that's,
But it's not, that's
That's
on
a neat
College.
photo.
and here's another.
Oh, my Lord. Is that St. Joseph's?
That one's in I think that one's in, town on the coast, Savannah. I think it's in
Oh,
Savannah.
that's-
Or, it's either in Savannah or it's the one in New Orleans.
wow.
Okay, here's another mission. I knew we could find it. There's another
Oh,
mission.
I love that with the bells and the rocks.
Here is part of the inside.
Is that the door you painted when you painted?
Uh-huh,
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's like a face with the eyes and nose.
isn't that funny?
It does.
Here's the interior of the wall of the Alamo.
What great perspective.
Here's another mission.
You're a really good photographer, too.
Thank you. And I really like that. That's another mission. But the simplicity of the building itself, you know, draws your attention up there. So, again, these have more interest to me than probably many of you, because if you haven't been there, it might not capture your attention. But I want to show you just a couple of things if you chose, oh, here's another part of a mission. So it could be where you just simplify and focus on one thing, and it could have one arch in the background, just enough to tell the story, but not the whole thing. All right, so what do y'all want me to show you?
That one you put away, I found that.
Oh, the one with the cross?
Or the
The-
first mission church.
Okay, I didn't put it away, it's just underneath all this. That one?
Love that one.
What about that one?
The last one you
The
showed
last
was
one was
pretty
really
good.
good.
That one?
Because of the
Yeah.
texture,
That's too bad.
and the one,
You don't have
Okay.
any shadows hardly though.
You don't have a lot of shadows
Except
on
at the
that.
very top, the little.
And the clouds. The clouds you would leave, but that's okay. I'll do this one real quick, and then we'll go to another one, and then I want y'all to, we'll put one up and let y'all try it.
Are you gonna demo it then?
I'll demo this one.
Awesome.
Okay, now this is one where it's like, I think I want to draw it first. So, or maybe not.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe not.
Look at your cat.
Oh my gosh.
Uh-oh, you've got to
She
help
walked down
her.
that arm.
Kitty's getting in the video.
Ridiculous.
she Riley was so animated yesterday.
They both, it's just weird. It's like all of a sudden they have to have their
Well, we are in this phase.
tension. Okay, I'm gonna have to stop and start again because it won't let me change.